putting in some messages about turning off your cameras. That'd be awesome. So welcome to the wonderful virtual 23rd Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar. It's really great to have you all on board, and this year is a little bit different. We didn't want to cancel this year because of COVID, and so we thought we'd offer you something a little bit different. So we've sprinkled around every Thursday through September, and one in October as a bonus, some short seminars for you so that we don't miss out on all the great things. This year our theme is From Little Things, and today we're going to hear from three great speakers who are going to share with us a bit more about engaging young people in conservation. Before I get too far into the proceedings, however, I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional owners on all the lands that we're joining this seminar from today. For me, that is in Horsham, Victoria, and it's the land of the Watchabolik, Jardwa, Jardwajali, Wagaya and Yapagok peoples. And I'd like to extend my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and any elders that are with us today, and recognise their proud traditions, vibrant cultures and continued connection to land, water and the community. The committee that works behind the scenes, we deliver this seminar each year through a little bit of love from everybody, and we'd really like to acknowledge those organisations that have helped us with this year's event. So we're really grateful to Bank Australia, the Bridget-Gangan Land Council, Department of Land, Water and Planning, Project Platypus, Trust for Nature, the Wimmera CMA and Yarriambiack Landcare Network. I've got a couple of housekeeping things to run through before we start off with our first speaker, and we've got a surprise to squeeze in just before then as well. So just to make it easier on everybody, if people could please mute at all times, that would be wonderful, so it doesn't cause any unnecessary disruptions to our speakers. And also turn your videos off as well so that we can save the bandwidth and create a better quality image for everybody watching. If you're in this via Teams, there is a chat box function that we'd like you to use if you've got a question you'd like to pose to any of the presenters. We'll curate those and we'll then ask them of the presenters after each presentation. If you really like something, do a thumbs up, and then we know that they're quite popular, so we'll make sure we try and get to those. If you're watching this via YouTube, we've got an email for you to go to, Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar, all one word, @hotmail.com. And we're monitoring that email address and we'll filter in those questions too. We're asking people not to record this session on their own devices. We're recording it and we'll make it available through the statewide Integrated Flora and Fauna team website known as SWIFT, and people can then watch it there in their own leisure time, which will be great. And if you're having any trouble at all, please use that email that we've mentioned before, Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar, all one word, @hotmail.com, or add it into the chat function. Oh, the controversial, the mugs. We did put out the call that the first 75 people who registered for the event will get a free mug this year. They're an icon of the Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar series, and those mugs are already allocated. We had more than 160 people register for today's event. What we're doing is just seeing how the COVID restrictions relax, and we will work out the best way to get those mugs to people. So we'll be in touch with them. We know who they are. It's all safe, and yeah, great picture's going to turn up in your chat box soon. We'll also have a survey that we'd love you to participate in that we'll throw into the chat box at the end of this meeting. That'll be great. We can get your feedback so that we can improve as we go. It's the first time we're doing this online. There'll be a few hiccups. So yeah, let us know how you thought it went. That'd be great. And we've got a special announcement today before our first speaker. We have a first ambassador for the Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar. You might remember back in our 2017 for the 20th anniversary, we had Costa Georgiadis join us at the event. Well, he's actually agreed to be our first official ambassador for the Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar, and he's provided a short video to share with you now. So over to the tech whiz, Annie.
Hello. Oh. Hi everyone, it's Costa here, and I just want to take a minute and say a big thank you to everyone associated with the Wimmera Biodiversity Seminar for asking me to become your first ambassador. From the moment that I first became connected with the seminar some 4 or 5 years ago now, I knew straight away that everything that you were doing was ahead of its time. You were really leading the way when it comes to the importance of looking after our biodiversity, the big picture, but then empowering and getting people engaged in their world. And I think what I love about it the most is that you provide a platform for local, passionate biodiversity specialists across so many different fields to be able to be showcased and really celebrated within your community, but then further afield because of the reach and the gravity that your event creates. It really has, it has a weight, it has a value, and it has serious international significance. And I knew then that's why I wanted to come. That's why I wanted to be involved. And I'm so humbled to be asked to come on board as an ambassador, because it's an opportunity to represent so many people that have supported, all of the volunteers that have been involved, all of the speakers, all of that information and the research and the data that people have lovingly presented, to be able to represent that and help put the word out even further as an ambassador is an absolute honour. Oh, look, there's the chickens just wandering by in the background. Hello, girls. So, look, I'm totally chuffed. I can't wait to celebrate this year, the 23rd year, and within no time, it will be a quarter of a century of work that is just priceless for the planet. So from my heart to all of yours, a big, big thank you, and here's to a great seminar in 2020.
Wow. Well, thank you, Costa. We're humbled, I think. So that is just wonderful news. And you might even see him in person next year, potentially. So we have our first speaker up, Julie Andrew, who I've known for quite a while. And I think a lot of other people know her in the Wimmera too. She's originally from Melbourne and she's lived in Stawell for the past 26 years. She's got qualifications in agricultural science, forestry and accounting. She's worked in the natural resource management area in federal, state and local levels, and she currently works part-time with Project Platypus and the Wimmera Catchment Management Authority field crew. She's been an active member of the Stawell Urban Landcare Group for about 10 years, and she's involved with schools' ironbark walks since their inception in 2000. I'm starting to feel old when we talk about 2000. That's 20 years, Julie. That's amazing. And she's an avid bushwalker. So all the way over to you, Julie. Lead us away. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pauline. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm in the Project Platypus office at the moment, and Annie's going to put a PowerPoint, some of the photos that go through while I'm speaking. So the Ironbark Schools Nature Walks project kicked off quite some time ago, but I'll give you a little bit of background about why it started. Okay, so the Ironbark forests in Stawell are our actual backyard, and the people of our town use this area daily for a range of activities. Some are healthy, some detrimental. To the north, much of the forest is reserved in the Deep Lead Nature Conservation Reserve for its species richness and being the westernmost extension of the Box Ironbarks community. It's called the Forgotten Forests, the Box Ironbarks, and they've been undervalued. The nearby Grampians have really stolen the limelight, and we have a focus. We focus on the Grampians. They are stunning and they are special, but our little Box Ironbark forest around Stawell, they really get forgotten, and it's important for our locals to value what really is a treasure. So the aim of the walks is for our local children to develop their observational skills in a natural classroom, learn about the Box Ironbark forests of the Stawell area and their importance, and to encourage a sense of ownership and stewardship for their local forest, including how to use them appropriately, and also to build that connection to the place that they call home. And we really are. Stawell and the upper catchment is set amongst the box ironbarks. So for our landcare groups, the aim was to work together with our local schools and the students to foster experiential learning and to build environmental awareness and a landcare ethic in our next generation. So what does it involve? Well, each year the projects involve taking the grade 3 students from 3 of our primary schools here in Stawell on a nature walk in the ironbark forests just to the north. And we do that spring each year, and normally we would do that in the last week of third term, but not this year, sadly, and we all know why. Each school has its own walk with trained volunteer guides from either the Stawell Urban Landcare Group, but quite a lot are just interested members in the local community. The Landcare Group coordinates the walks with the schools and arranges and trains volunteer guides. While the students walk, they complete a written questionnaire, and you'll see in the photos that the kids are carrying around clipboards with bits of paper on them. That's their questionnaires. And so they have to listen carefully as we walk around so that they can fill out their questionnaires, and it helps them keep focus. So the history. The Stawell and District Conservation Group was the driver behind the first Ironbarks walks. The Ironbarks walks started in 2000 as part of a larger Ironbarks festival run in Stawell. And I think there's a few people listening who would have been involved in that. Barry will remember that. The walks were coordinated by the Landcare officer working with DNRE at the time. The nature trail was initially mapped out by Jane Marriott, and local Parks Vic staff Peter Gravison and John Harris helped to construct the trail, and Jane did the early interpretation signage and the self-guided notes. For the school walks, the guides were drawn from DNRE and Parks staff and some knowledgeable locals. Initially, the schools covered their own transport costs, but since 2008, the state government Victorian Landcare Grants has funded the buses for the kids to get out to the Deeplead Nature Reserve, and that's come via the CMA. Up to 2010, the local Landcare officer coordinated the walks, and then Stawell Urban Landcare Group has taken over the running of the walks. The active project delivery provides a sense of commitment and purpose for local people in that Landcare group. Over time, the volunteers have been trained as new guides and also acted as photographers and adult helpers on the walks. Additional members of the community with an interest in local flora and fauna have been recruited as guides, as well as the continued involvement of various different agency staff over time, which we appreciate. In 2018, the Parks Vic Community Engagement Officer, Hannah, came out and gave us a hand, as well as our local Landcare facilitator, Andrea, and they have acted as guides. In 2018, we also had some grant support, and you'll see here on this photo connecting with the cards, one of the Connies, for those that know the Connies. They're from Melbourne, but we were able to, with the grant, bring one of the Connies up to present to the children before they went out on the walk, so in the classroom, and then when we were out on the walk. And so they use these great little swap cards, and you'll see him holding up those little cards, and he does a great spiel. It's information about local species, and then they can connect with via the cards also what is the plants and animals they're seeing when they're out on their walk. The walks include discussion of other Landcare group activities like the Nest Box project. Some years ago, we actually got some footage of a feathertail glider that was utilising one of the nearby nest boxes. You can see that on the photo on the left. And that bit of footage, we were able to actually show the kids while they were out on the walk. We just strapped the camera to the bottom of the tree so they could watch the footage and realise that the nest boxes they could see around them were acting as the homes for local arboreals, that they could really understand that those nest boxes really were helping to provide homes in what basically is a regenerated forest. We also have recently, the Landcare groups recently set up cameras that have been installed to monitor feral animals, because we understand that even though we might be providing homes for animals and birds, if we've got a pretty high feral population and we're pretty close to town, that's going to impact too. So we're doing some monitoring. By collecting that data, we will hopefully be able to attract more parks resources to do some more feral control. And within 2 weeks of putting a camera out, we saw the fallow on the right-hand side. So they've already picked up numbers of foxes, and we expect we'll probably, hopefully, sort of see, well, we hope not, but we expect that there will be some cats show up as well. So the children can understand the other kinds of projects that are going on. And even though when they walk through the forest, they don't see a lot of animals, this kind of footage is going to be to allow them to see what is actually there. The kinds of topics that we usually cover when we do the talks with the kids, and I'll have the next slide, thanks Annie, is we're looking at the land tenure and the purposes of those different land tenures, so they understand what the Nature Conservation Reserve means and how it's different from other areas. The kids learn about the forest type and the structure of the forest, tree, shrub and understory identification. So hopefully by the end of the walk, they can at least identify at least 3 or 4 different types of eucalypts. They can see they know what bull oaks look like, understand about the different wattles, and also a lot of the understory flowers and shrubs and herb layer that's there. They also we look at local fauna and what kind of habitat they might need, and that ties in with the Nest Box project. We talk about ecosystem dynamics, and we tell the story of the mistletoe bird and mistletoe plants, the changing landforms and effect on vegetation, and human impact over time on the forest, which is a big one because the kids actually mostly a regenerated forest after gold mining activity. So it ties in with a lot of the history of our town, and it brings that in, and also trying to tie it into what was human use of that area before Europeans settled. And we talk about the appropriate management, use and activities that might go on in a nature conservation reserve, and what we have to do to look after what we have there and why it's so special. Normally we do an evaluation with the schools each year, and we request feedback, and the schools are pretty keen to be involved, and the students hear from the year before. So it's a special thing about being in grade 3 because you get to go on the nature walk. So they're quite excited and they hear stories about that. And interestingly, generally less than a quarter of the students have previously been out to the ironbarks and walked on that nature trail, which I find quite surprising. So by the end of grade 3, pretty much all store kids will have walked that nature trail, and we encourage them to bring their families out and to teach them what they have learnt when they've been out. We are building awareness with other activities, like a lot of the kids get involved with Project Platypus school plant-outs during the tree planting season. So it's connecting in with other activities, Landcare activities that are going on. And hopefully from that we'll be able to build the next generation of Landcarers. We also get good feedback from those that have been guiding. They really enjoy it. It's a small commitment, so some of the guides might only come for the, one walk or a number of walks each year, but usually they love it. We particularly target ex-school teachers or retired school teachers who are also interested in the bush. The guides require a knowledge of the natural environment and a passion for assisting children to learn. generally the guides only stop because they get sick or they get a bit too old or they have family commitments for the younger ones. And usually there are up to 5 guides each year contributing up to 18 hours of volunteer time. Over 100 children per year attend the walks. So far, well, there's over 1,700 students. We're probably a bit further along than that now. We're probably up to the 2,000 students have attended Ironbark's walks in the last 19 years. And their guides' willingness to volunteer their time and talents bodes well for future generations of Stawell, building a strong land care ethic. How am I going for time there, Pauline?
Yeah, Julie, you're going well. Yep.
Okay, rightio. So I might give you a little bit of the feedback from the kids because Bronnie Bant has been a regular helper and she's also a school teacher at 502. And she came out with the kids last year and she got them all to write letters back to us thanking us for that experience and to also capture some of the things they liked about it. So I might just read 1 or 2 of those out. So from one of the kids, thank you for taking all the grade 3s into the Stawell Ironbarks. I loved exploring and searching for pretty flowers and the nest boxes in the trees. The trees were interesting to feel. And I still have some questions, like what's the rarest bird? And do you like taking grade 3s into the Ironbarks? One of the others, another one, it was great to learn about the Ironbarks and see all the fantastic things out there. I loved learning about the coral reef sponge and how it untwists and becomes softer and with water. Another highlight was looking at the mine shafts, and I'm still wondering about the child's grave. And he's really excited to take his family out to the Ironbarks and show them all the wonderful things he's learnt. And then from Shiloh, thanks so much for all your time touring us around the Ironbarks. I really enjoyed learning all the names of the wildflowers like milkmaids. I'm still keen to learn about why people still dump their rubbish in the Ironbarks. They're not very grateful. We are the only people in the world that have these beautiful wildflowers. And I love listening to the frogs at the start. My highlight was looking at the wildflowers. So really good feedback from the kids. It also told us something about the other things that they might be interested in. So some of the things we are have added over time is in 2017 we started doing pre-walk talks at the schools just to kind of warm them up to the activity. And it's really important to have an advocate in each of the schools, which we have had over the years. Somebody who's also passionate about the kids learning about nature really helps. And we've also offered that other land care groups in the upper catchment do a similar kind of things with their local schools. So last year, Andrea Mitchell coordinated a little community walk out near Moyston at the Nook because they'd recently brought a book out on the different plants there. And I think Moyston Landcare Group was interested to maybe follow up with their local primary school and taking them out to places like the Nook so that they can learn and value their local places as well. So we are looking at maybe doing follow-up sessions with the schools. We may be looking at building this and how we can include the biology students at the secondary college and how we can integrate citizen science projects for the kids. So one of the ones we were thinking was the wild pollinator project, where we just spend a bit of time and look at what kind of insects are coming to the flowers when they're there, and possibly running walks and presentations to the adult community. We have been able to do some of these things in the past, but it just depends on volunteers and whether they've got the time and energy for doing this kind of thing. So I might leave it there, but our whole point of doing this is that we build up that land care ethic in our young people and in the next generation, because the Ironbarks have been pretty battered around and they really need people to look after them. So I might take questions, Pauline.
Thanks, Julie. It was like you were totally reading all of the questions because you answered a fair few of them. People were really interested in hearing about if you were going to try and reach out and do walks with VCE biology or environmental studies classes. So that sounds like yes, you could if you've got some extra volunteers.
Extra volunteers, and also whether the school wants to do that. So it really depends on the teachers there and having a time. One of the other things we were going to do this year was, because the walks are often quite very busy, and to get them done in the 2 hours with all the talking and looking and feeling and listening that the kids are doing, it's very busy. We were going to do a school holiday program for primary school students this year, which was to spend a little bit more time in nature and just being quiet. So we were doing like yoga and haiku and drawing and some things like that just allowed kids more space and time to be mindful in the bush, which we don't get that much time while we're walking. So
that's wonderful. Yeah. That's great. And I think I really enjoyed what the students were telling you. What the wisdom in grade 3s is amazing, and the sort of self-awareness and the insight that they've got. There's a few people who are quite interested in maybe helping out. Do you have a way that people can contact you to reach out if they want to become a volunteer or find out anything more?
Sure.
What's the best way to do that?
Well, they can contact me. They can ring through at Project Platypus and I'll get a message. Okay. So, yeah.
Great. All right, we might pop that in the chat so people can
Fantastic.
have that. And night walks. I think you've got like a future business here. People are interested in guided walks for adults, and if you wanted to do anything in terms of a night walk as well. What else? So how to contact you? Do you have anyone? I'm really curious. You've been doing this for 20 years, 2,000 plus students. Do you know where some of them might have gone and how that could have impacted them in their adult lives?
Well, I kind of thought about that, and I think that's a pretty hard call to say. You know, the Ironbark's walks has led to lots of young people going into careers in natural resource management. No, we don't have any feedback about that because I think it's a combination of things, but certainly having a generation of children now that has had that connection with the Ironbarks. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have flowed through in terms of the local community looking after that area of forest. We're still having inappropriate use of that area, and we would have hoped that would have improved over time, but we're still hopeful. We haven't had any come back and join the Landcare group yet.
You never know, though. Often it could be maybe they work in business management somewhere or something totally not NRM related, but they're the ones trying to reduce waste in their organisation. It's hard to know, isn't it, how much impact you've had, those little things, or they're more observant of their environment. A few more people are quite interested in if homeschooling groups or networks could get involved and join in with the school group too.
We would probably maybe do that separately, because we organise each school individually. There's potential for that, absolutely.
Okay. And what else have we got in there? I think that's about it. You've got a chance to have a look at the chat too, Julie, and just answer some of those questions. And people, we've posted the email address and phone for people to get in touch with you at Project Platypus.
Right.
And I think you've got a great audience there. Everyone's really enjoyed that. And well done to you. What a legacy. That's doing something like this for such a long time. It's rare, I think. So thank you for everything that you do and the volunteers that you nurture and how you manage that program. It's great.
Thank you.
Thanks for this morning. Okay, so next up in our fabulous trio, we've got Ange Turrell. So she'll be joining us in just a moment. So Ange is a marketing strategist with both Australian and international experience, recently running her own consultancy in regional Victoria. Her passion is to bring sustainable development to the local economy, including the environment. And she joined the Jaluka Landcare Group in 2015 and has been active in identifying priorities for the group and getting grant funding ever since. As a member of the Project Platypus board, Ange is keen to raise the profile and capacity of landcare in the region, and she lives nestled in with her Labrador Nero on a beautiful 37-hectare property in the Grampians in Western Victoria, and is aiming to restore the land to native grasslands and bushland. And she's a member of the award-winning Grasslands project run by Jaluka Landcare. So thanks, Ange. We'll let you take it away. Can't wait to hear more.
Thank you, Pauline. Hi, everyone. Is the presentation up?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay,
Coming up
thanks. I
now.
can see it. So today I'm going to talk to you about the Jaluka Native Grasslands project that started in 2016 and we hope will continue for a long time. When we talk about things, from little things, I'm not sure how many of you have ever seen a grass seed, say from wallaby grass or kangaroo grass or even everlasting daisies. They're pretty small and you need quite a few of them to revegetate or regenerate grasslands. So the From Little Things idea really applies in grasslands restoration and revegetation, which is what our project's all about. But anyway, the project, as I said, started in 2016. Our aim is, or our purpose is that by growing community, can you go back, Annie? Annie, I'll give you a thumbs up when we need to go to the next page.
No worries.
Can we go back a slide? Okay, sorry. So I was just talking about what our purpose was in this project, and it was quite important for us to have a clear sense of purpose. So just reading off the slide there, by growing community engagement and capability, the project aims to restore native grasslands in the region. So at the end of the day, we want to have increased the number of grasslands that are in our region. But we recognise that to do that, we need to work with and engage the community and increase capability within the community. So a couple of things we did early on was establish a steering committee, which has guided the project. And that was really important too, because in some ways we didn't know where we'd end up or how we'd get there. So we needed a committee, a small group of experts to discuss and drive the way forward. And the other thing was, given that we were applying for grants and things, we really needed to have be part of a body or a group. And so we came in under the Jaluka Landcare group so that, we can apply for grants and things through them and have the liability insurance and all that sort of thing, volunteer protection, etc. So while we are now under Jaluka Landcare, it didn't start out that way. It started out with broader groups in the region, such as the Australian Plant Society and the Wimmera group, along with Landcare. Jaluka Landcare has now made the Grasslands project its #1 priority. Thanks, Annie. So the idea for the project, it was all about restoration, and at the top you can see that we needed to, well, this diagram actually kind of illustrates what we do. So restoration's at the heart of it, an active, engaged and capable community underpins it, but there's wild collection on the left-hand side, there's seed production on the right-hand side, and then once planted, things like weed control, pest control and active maintenance. So this slide sort of sums up what the project or the idea for the project is. And the second part or this slide talks about engagement. So engagement of local groups in land care and outside of land care has been quite important. The more people that we had involved in various activities, such as workshops and events, the better. Because what we found is that people actually didn't know much about grasslands, and even down to the point of which one is a native grass species versus which one isn't. So there was quite a lot of people who've been in and out of the project over time. I'd say that we've probably got up to about 50 or 60 people who've attended either workshops or working bees or events and things over the past 4 years. We also set up a reference library, so we've got a number of books and things that people can refer to, and they're pretty popular. So the first thing we had to do was get seed, and we started with collecting wild seed at local sites. And this site, I believe, is the Jaluka Forest. And we included forests, roadsides, private land, and these are photos from all of those sites around where we could go. And you will have noticed that some of the photos have grasslands that are sort of in open space and others have trees, and that's just how they are. The next one is a picture of the Stall race track. There's the most amazing native grassland in the middle of the Stall racetrack. Who knew? So, and the picture there of, I think it's Phil Bennett, he won't mind me mentioning him, is with a great big handful of stiper grass collected from one of our members' properties. Just showing you these pictures because to show you a little bit about the diversity of the different places where we collected wild seed. We had to start with collecting seed in the wild because you can't really readily buy it. And if you do try and buy it, it's incredibly expensive. So it's almost like the seeds are, of grassland seeds are like our gold. The other thing too that we've all learned is that it's not just grasses. Although grasses are the main species, so things like wallaby grass, spear grasses, kangaroo grasses, etc., are the main species. There's also a lot of herbs. And in our area, we've collected, I think it's about 56 different species of seed from grasslands around the area. We had a target list that was put together for us by one of our experts on the team. And in our collections, we're really aiming for the rarer species to take back to a nursery to propagate. Grasses are more common, and we've found that we can collect them en masse from some remnant places or properties around the place. So, for example, on my place, I've got stacks of stiper. So you can just come in and pretty much mow that and collect the seed. And other members have got patches of wallaby grass and kangaroo grass that we can collect a heap of grass from en masse. Collection time is October to December when the plants have flowered and the seeds are starting to form. So there's a right time, the plants are starting to dry out and the seeds are then collectible. And just as a bit of a measure, I suppose, and I know it varies, but we recently revegetated a 1.6 hectare site and we needed 40 kilos of seed to do that. In the right mix, of course, across the varieties, but 40 kilos of seed for 1.6 hectares. Okay, so while we were out collecting seed, we doubled up and ran workshops, and some of you might recognise some faces there. There's Neil Marriott in full flight. He ran a number of our plant identification and collection techniques sessions along with Jess Gardner, Phil Williams, and Wendy Marriott. And so when we were in the forest, we walked around looking for plants, identifying them and collecting seeds. This was one of the most, and we ran a number of these. As I said earlier, a lot of people didn't really have a very firm idea or a firm grip on which plants were natives and which ones weren't. And so Neil and the team were able to really increase our knowledge in that, which a lot of us have taken back to our own properties to help to generate, or encourage the native grasses on our own places. We've also been on excursions. So there's a project down at Wandoo where they're restoring some amazing roadside native grasslands. Our project's different. We need to actually revegetate, but these guys are restoring grasslands along the side of the road, and it's a fantastic project. We've got a lot in common, and it was an amazing excursion. And this is a picture of us having a picnic after collecting seeds out in the bush for a few hours. There's a diverse range of age groups and people from different backgrounds in the group, and many people really wanting to participate. It seems that this subject of native grasslands really strikes a chord with quite a few people from different backgrounds, and so that's been fantastic in terms of people attending working bees, contributing time, contributing resources, etc. Part of our collection out in the field is to put them in paper bags. There's a picture of Jess Gardner. I'm not sure if Jess is with us today, but Jess has been an amazing inspiration and source of expertise on this project. And she's got a paper bag there with the Illawarra Reserve, the date, the species on the bag. And sheep's burr is one of Jess's favourites. So we all collect these seeds and put them in bags, and we make sure that we record the source details. It's really important because members were going back home and collecting seeds off their own places, and it was really important they put them in bags and identify them for later when we're working out the mix of what we need to put in, or the recipe, if you like, when we revegetate. So we end up with tons of paper bags full of seeds, etc., and then the cleaning starts, so which is quite painstaking. And this picture is a school group of girls from Melbourne who came up and helped us to do some seed sorting and cleaning. Then we put them in, well, the next thing is to store them somehow. So you can see here that we've got different varieties or different species in different little glad bags there. We also had huge big grain bags, if you like, full of stiper, wallaby, kangaroo and everlasting daisies, etc., that we store in a cool place. These are all cleaned and weighed, so you can see, 25 grams there, and you can see how many seeds. So you can imagine when I said we need 40 kilos for 1.6 hectares, how many of these seeds we really need and how overwhelming that could be. The other thing is to keep track of what we've found and collected. So we set up a database. So we've tracked all the species, we've tracked all the sites and the grammage or the volume or the weight, sorry. That way we can keep track of what we've got, what we need, and then when we take seeds out to revegetate, we know what we need to replenish. So you can imagine that collecting seeds in the wild would be almost impossible to collect enough seeds to do any meaningful revegetation. So enter the Pomonal Wildflower Nursery and Phil Williams, who's pictured there, along with Glenda Lewin, who you may not, it's not great, we can't really tell that it's Glenda, but it is. So Phil Williams had a nursery in Pomona that he had space in that he donated to us so that we could do some seed production through propagating the seeds that we'd collected. So part of that was, and part of the funding that we've received has gone towards maintaining and restoring that nursery. So with weed mats and irrigation, etc. I said before that we focused on rarer species, like not the grasses, for the collection and production. And the reason we didn't focus on the grasses is because we could collect enough bulk in the wild. And so we planted these little seeds in hycos and boxes. There's a group there, some of the volunteers at Phil's nursery doing just that. So here's a picture of the hycos and the boxes out in the nursery, and you can see how they're flourishing. We used potting mix and fertiliser and regular watering, and it was just, we weren't sure. I mean, we're taking these seeds out of a very different environment to what they would be in naturally, but they just took off. We were amazed at how well they grew. And from these seeds, we also did more harvesting and cataloguing, which is a huge job. There's also quite a bit of regular maintenance. Regular maintenance required, which is weeding and watering. And here's some people, some well-known members doing that maintenance, and you can see how clean and neat the place is and how much work's been put into maintaining it. It's a lovely place to go and work. We've had many working bees pretty much every Wednesday when we could. Of course, we've been a bit more restricted lately, but I do know that people go there. You know, it's a very happy place. So as part of our propagation, we also restored a hothouse, or refurbished a hothouse with a new cover and flooring and cleaned it up. And we also put in irrigation. So the hothouse is best used for when we're starting to sprout the seeds at the beginning. And once they're established, we put them out into bigger pots or stick them out into the open in the pictures that I showed you before. So that's one additional seed production element that we've started. And then the second one was to do mass plantings, or mass bed production. So this photo here is from David Franklin's farm for inspiration. So you can see there a field of daisies. You could, to harvest that, you could literally just go over the top, collect all the flowers and get the seeds. We haven't done something as ambitious as that, but we've put in 2 sites of mass bed production. Sometimes the slides are changing quickly and sometimes they're not. Okay. Annie, can we get the next slide? Okay. I'll just keep talking and hopefully we'll get the next slide in a moment, or maybe you've already got it. So we put in 2 mass bed production sites and which involve fencing, clearing, irrigation, matting, stones, and thousands of plants from our nursery.
That's on setup, Ange, is that fine?
Sorry, I just came into the last bit.
That's okay. This one's on the setup slide. Is that good for you?
I'm not sure. Oh, okay. So I'm not getting that visual. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So you can see here what a mass bed involved in terms of setup and some of the resources and work that was required. We can go to the next one, Annie. I don't know why I'm not getting the visual, so I'll just have to talk to my notes. Sorry about this. So once the weed mat's down, thousands of plants are planted. They're all the same species. And so that makes harvest easier. And you can imagine that we get a lot more seeds from it. And in the middle of that picture there are the containers of everlasting daisies that we got off this, this site. So doing this, and we'll have 3 or 4 of these mass harvest sites eventually, really ups our ability to, you know, get seed. So finally, on to the next slide, revegetation. So in this picture is that bag of gold that I was talking about, a 40-kilo bag of seed that we used to revegetate or plant on a site in near Pomona. So the site that we chose was one, it was the Wimmera block. Some of you might know that. It will be open to the public in future. And it was 1.6 hectares. So the steps to doing that, firstly was scalping about 100 mils of soil off the top of the ground. So hopefully getting most of the weeds and seeds off the top of the ground. A lot of people find the whole notion of scalping pretty scary, but it's been shown to work. And this was on the advice of Greening Australia. We sprayed it twice and then direct seeded. So David Franklin did the direct seeding for us. In the picture of the dirt there, you can see the little spiky holes and the seeds go down through into the holes. And his seeder there, or whatever planter, I'm sure there's a technical name for it, he designed specifically for native grasslands. And you'll notice also in this picture there's a fence, that's a vermin-proof fence, so we can keep the kangaroos off and protect our grasses from them. So these photos were hot off the press. Thank you, Glenda. We are like expectant mothers. So that was planted in April, late April, and it's fairly slow growth compared to the weeds which are next door. But, you know, I think that's just the nature of the beast. So our next steps are to continue with seed production and collection and to identify and sow future sites, because at the end of the day, our measure of success will be how many, I guess, hectares of native grasslands we've been able to revegetate or restore. And then finally, just want to say thank you to our partners. The CMA in particular have, you know, they've been the main source through the government for grants and support. They've been incredibly supportive. Greening Australia through Jess Gardner, her expertise and support's been amazing. The volunteer groups such as the Grampians Australian Plant Society, Wimmera, Jaluka Landcare, etc. And last year, quite unexpectedly, we won a Victorian Landcare Award and couldn't be prouder. So that's it for me on our specific project, but I'd just like to end by saying there's a more serious context for this, and that is that native grasslands are critically endangered. The state government was meant to have done some, or bought some land in Victoria to conserve these ecologies or these ecosystems, and they haven't. And for all sorts of reasons, but this is a critically endangered ecosystem. You know, as much as we're enjoying our project out here, there's a much bigger issue with our grasslands. Thank you.
Thanks, Ange. That's great, and it's so inspiring. That's just such a lovely model. And when I learnt about it, there is a Wimmera grasslands group that are looking to see what they can do, particularly in the northwest Wimmera, where they're quite scattered, not a lot of representation on private property or public land really, and just roadside. So we will be having to connect, I think, at some time in the future, because the model's wonderful. That grassroots, you know, pun intended, people getting out there on their own property and collecting. It's amazing. Now, you do have a few questions coming through, so here we go. Did you need to do any experimentation with the seed treatments in the nursery to get some of the species to germinate?
Look, there's some real expertise on the team, as I talked about, but no, I'd say no. Overall, they just took off. I mean, some of them better than others, but they just went crazy in the conditions. You know, with a bit of fertiliser, potting mix, water, hothouse, they went crazy.
That's great. And it's a shame because those coming to the physical event this year, we'd planned to go out to the Wimmera site and even maybe the nursery to have a look at things on ground, but we might save that for another year because that would have been great to see that. Someone just did want to check, you'd mentioned 56 species that you'd collected in your big 40 kilos. Did you have 56 for the re-veg site at Wimmera?
Yes, so in the Wimmera mix, as we call it, it's like the recipe, and Jess put it together. So I am no ecologist, which would be patently obvious after you've all listened to me. But yes, within the mix for the Wimmera site were 56 species.
Yep, wonderful. That's such a huge effort. And I love the description of, it's your own gold, because it really is. They're so light. It takes a lot of effort to get that kind of kilo. What else do we have? Someone was really quite curious about organic methods of spraying rather than spraying with chemicals as a pre-treatment. Have you got thoughts or on that one, or future ideas? Or
look, I think it's pretty challenging or confronting to A, scalp the ground, and B, then spray it. We used the commercially available products to spray it, but I think it's a great point and a great question. How rough do we need to be to the environment to actually get it to tip it in favour of the natives? And I don't know that using glyphosate is the answer, but we did that, and I think it's a good question.
It is tricky, isn't it? It has been. Because I'm familiar with Paul Gibson-Roy's work as well through Greening Australia, and once we've changed the landscape and added lots of fertiliser, that scalping can really just take it back to the bare bones that our native species are used to living in, rather than the souped up soil version that we might have left behind as a legacy.
Yeah,
I think I can. Yeah.
Sorry, the less fertile we can make the ground that we're putting these seeds in, the more it favours the natives over the weeds. So although the natives clearly have responded brilliantly in the nursery to those fertile conditions, out in paddocks and stuff, the weeds just take over. But if you make it really infertile, it really favours the seeds, the natives. That's the thought behind it.
Yeah, it seems to be working. Yeah, amazing. I think might try and squeeze one more question in, and this will be the last one. You've got a lot of love coming to you too from the chat, so you'll have to have a look at that later. Someone was curious about, Julie Andrew was about whether you've got any rare or native grasses from different areas, such as saline areas, in terms of changing or having different mix.
What I didn't touch on this, I must have missed my notes. We were really aiming for diverse locations and then diversity within the species. So, we might get wallaby grass from 5 different locations. That's important. It really improves the strength of the plant, but all the ecologists would all know that. In terms of different ecosystems, we've really stuck to the Jaluka Landcare region, which isn't particularly saline. So, Julie, short answer, no. But I'm sure there are other people or other groups that could comment on that. But these plants are so adaptable. I'd just be amazed if it didn't work, in other soils.
Yep. And you're doing the best thing, aren't you? Just getting that range and letting nature take care of itself.
It's raining now. It started pouring here where I am in my lounge room.
Catch some for the rest of us. That's good. Yeah. So thank you, Ange. That was great. And you've got a lot of love and support in the chat there. So very much appreciate your presentation and the work that you do. Thank you for joining us today. That's great.
Thanks, everyone.
Alrighty, lucky last. So we have a really special treat for you. We've got the young Matilda Venn joining us. I don't know, Matilda, if you want to pop your camera on so we can see you. There we go. Thank you. And we're going to do this a little bit differently. Andrea is going to do a bit of a Q&A session with Matilda. And Matilda, we've kind of dubbed you, I hope it's okay, as an amateur orchidologist. We think we might have made up the word, but perhaps that's the best way to describe you. Matilda's already showing such a strong passion for orchids in her environment and just a love of wanting to share that with other people. And just recently, she's been awarded the Under 14s Friend Award from the Victorian Environment Friends Network. That was only just a week or two ago, so congratulations, Matilda. That is really great.
Thank you.
So that's my pleasure. Well deserving, I think, and it's just such a joy for you to join us today. So thank you for taking time out of your homeschooling and all those things. And I'll leave it to you, Andrea, to take us away with Matilda.
Okay, thanks very much, Pauline. Good afternoon, all. It's just afternoon, and I'm Andrea Mitchell, local Landcare facilitator for Project Platypus. And you've just heard from two of my Landcare groups, and I'm very proud of them. And then my other little gold find is actually Matilda, who I met as a 12-year-old at the Pomona Flower Show. And as a 12-year-old, she took us into a group of people into the bush to look at orchids. And I thought she was taking us to the expert to learn about the orchids, but no, it was Matilda that is the expert. And what an amazing young girl that I've got to know, and also that I knew about, and I really wanted to share her passion and her joy and understanding of why young people and how to get young people involved in nature. So without further ado, Matilda, it'd be great if you could start off with your speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi guys, I'm Matilda, and in Year 9, and I love learning and looking at the orchids in the Pomona Mills Creek Reserve. My interest in orchids popped up when I started prep. I'd walk past the orchids every day in the late winter on my way to school, and one day I asked Mum and Dad what the plant sticking out of the ground was. Mum and Dad told me all their common names like the waxlet, the spider orchid, and the pink fingers. But over the years, I started to find more and more orchids, and I saw how different they were and what makes them different and unique, like their colours and shapes. I looked into it and I found some books and asked around. Then it became more of a hobby. I would never have imagined that I would have been asked to talk in a webinar like this, so thanks. I've been helping out with the Pomona Wildflower Show for about 2 years now, but this year it was sadly cancelled. As Andrea said, I ran the orchid walks, and it's so crazy how many people came to see them and their sharing of the knowledge of plants. And I don't think I would have found a lot of the orchids if it wasn't for more people's eyes and their curiosity of looking around. This year I participated in the expo for the biggest science experiment. I put in a slideshow about an app survey that me and my dad put together, and it was really fun to share what I've learned, and I got a lot of really good feedback. I have also been invited to talk to the Grampians group of plants in 2021 and take part of the Pomona Spring Festival. And I was also, as you guys were saying earlier, that I won the award for the Victorian Friend Network Award. So I'm really grateful for Andrea, Gilda and Anthea who helped me, who did that. I got asked a lot of questions, and one of them was what my favourite orchid is. I love all orchids, but my favourite orchid is learning about the large flying duck orchid, which is Calliana major. When I love about it that when it's knocked or touched, the head is triggered into the belly. So the insect that the large flying duck orchid is trying to catch can be pollinated just like bees. pollinate flowers, but they get pollinated by sawflies. And the small dark orchid, which actually does something called pseudocopulation, and the orchid tricks the insect into mating with it and pollinating it by that way. The large flying dock orchid is not found in Pomona yet, but hopefully might come over the mountain. And the small flying duck orchid I've never seen, but I really want to. So that's all I had planned to say. So I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about me. Now, Andrea has some questions.
Oh, fabulous. Thanks very much for that. And I think your slideshow, I couldn't see that while you were, that's Annie in the background, isn't it, that was going to do the slideshow?
Yeah.
I'll put it up.
Yeah, so she might run it now while we chat.
Will do.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, so Matilda, can you tell us, the audience, about your journey to learning about nature?
Well, I did the Mount Williams research walk, which I don't remember too much because I was pretty young. And I don't remember much. So, but that was really nice, and there was a lot of nice people there. And we saw lots and lots of native plants, and it was a fairly long walk, and there was lots of grapes, and yeah.
Oh, good. And I work for Project Platypus, so I have to ask you about the plant outs too, and what plant outs mean to you as a young girl.
I love doing the plant outs, and I always have, and I think I always will. I just love how someone's asked for plants on their property, and plants are just so good for the environment, so it's really good.
Oh, thank you. Now, Matilda, how many orchids are there in Pomona, which is where you come from, your little township just out of the Grampians?
Well, I've found about 22, and hopefully still counting.
Oh, very good. And how do you tell them apart?
Mostly memory. And if I'm not sure whether it's one or the other, like if they look so alike, then I take a picture and take it back home and have a look in the books, or put a stick next to it and come back with a book.
Oh, very good. And then what orchids have you sighted so far this year? I know you've already told me this morning you've spotted something.
Yeah. Well, this year I've seen some pink fingers, the trim green hood, nodding green hoods, and vein helmet orchid, which is a new one. We've only just found a couple of leaves, which is the one that's on the screen now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then can you tell me where and how you find them?
Probably just walking around. Just, yeah. And if before they're out, like around about now, you just see their leaves on the ground, and that's just how you know where they're going to pop up.
I know, but for me, that's never sighted a native orchid until I was in my 40s. The fact that you even can tell the species just by the leaves, the first leaf stage, I find quite amazing. So I've heard it's actually a good year this year for orchids. Do you think so, and why?
I'd say it's looking pretty good. But I'm not really sure yet, just because it's just the start of the season. But it's very good weather for them. It's nice and sunny, so they like that.
Yeah. And then tell me, what do you think are the major threats to the orchids, especially in your region?
Probably the climate change, for getting hotter. I don't think they like that much. Weed invasion and getting eaten by kangaroos and deer, and humans as well from stomping on them.
Yeah, I've heard that the deer numbers are increasing around the Grampians area, especially that whole region. So the other event that people might not know about that you're involved with, and I see actually it's you've got links to it, is the biggest science experiment. And can you tell me what you designed with your dad?
Well, me and Dad designed a survey that records the observations that we found. So we would log in what the species is, where it is, the time, and the date. Yeah, just what it has on the screen there. And then it goes onto a computer, and then we can just see all the results and compare them.
So you must have a very clever dad that's helping you there. And I can just for everyone to know that the biggest science experiment, you can actually see a video of what you've achieved if you go onto that link, which maybe they'll put up on the screen so that people can watch later. And I know that you have been very fortunate to have mentors in your life. So can you talk to me about the importance for young people of having mentors to support them?
Well, I wasn't exactly sure what a mentor was, so I looked it up and I found that this mentoring is sharing knowledge, skills, and life experiences to guide another towards reaching their full potential. And I really like that. And I reckon one of my biggest mentors would be Anthea Nichols. We always shared our findings, what we'd find just when we're walking, and our love of learning. So she loves learning about grasses and things like that. So we both teach each other what we love.
Oh, and that's just fantastic. I wish there was more mentors, and even people watching today. It'd be great if they thought about being mentors, and then actually the importance that there is to young people for that. So is nature something always that you have loved?
Yes, definitely. Well, it's all around me, and my mum and dad were very outdoorsy and still are. So a lot of my childhood and still is getting out and about outside as much as possible.
Yeah, and you're probably luckier than a lot of kids that when they go outside to school, they've got a concrete path to look at, whereas you've got this wonderland where you can find orchids. I think you're in a fabulous position there, and the envy of many, no doubt. So what is your advice to involve and encourage young people with nature? So we're really wanting your opinion, because I'm not sure how many young people we've got here today, but I think it's probably the older community, and we want to help young people get involved more with nature. So what do you think?
Well, I really enjoyed the tree planting, and a few of my friends, we all tree plant together. So that was really fun. And walks and activities to get people outside and motivated. And then, yeah, most of the I'm already covered.
Yeah, it was. And so can you tell me, what is your take-home message for the audience as a young, passionate orchidologist, as we call you, and nature lover, and someone that we just want to wrap up and grab all her enthusiasm?
Probably just look after our land and environment, because we've only got one, so we have to embrace it, learn about it, and love it.
Oh, that's just the perfect answer, and you're the perfect person to be speaking today, Matilda. I've really appreciated listening to you and actually getting to know you over the last couple of weeks. And just to remind everyone that you got it was the inaugural award for the Friends of the Environment Network, and that was for people that are giving it a go and getting involved with and having a love of the environment and making a difference. And you are the sort of person that makes a difference. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Matilda, don't go away just yet. We might have a few questions for you. And I hope you had your tissues ready, because so inspiring, Matilda. It really is. Do you know, from an old person, I've got children who are your age, and I get called old already, although I feel like a spring chicken. It is just so good to know that there's others that we can work with and care about the environment as much as we do, because sometimes that's the fear for us old people, is that maybe there won't be anyone to help carry us on. So thank you for everything that you're already doing. I'm sure you're going to have a bright future. And look, no pressure now, but quite interested in what you might like to do for a job. Do you know?
Not really, but I definitely want to work with plants, whether it's like looking at them, finding them, or planting them. Yeah.
Excellent. We need more plant people. What's your favourite orchid? Do you have one?
Not really, but the large flying duck orchid was pretty cool. Yeah.
They're a bit crazy, aren't they? Sometimes you think, okay, I'm going to be an orchid. What can I do? Oh, look like a duck. Like what? There's so much humour in that, isn't there? And they really do look like a duck. It's amazing. It's hard to pick favourites, isn't it? I understand. And I'm curious about, do you talk to your friends? So you've got some friends you mentioned you do tree planting with. Do you talk to them at school about this stuff? What do they say?
They kind of, well, I talk to them about the orchids and they're like, yeah, okay, that's good, Matilda. Yep, you do you. Like they're interested, but they're not, with it.
Do you know what's good about that though? Is that you're still holding your own, and all of us who love nature, we all embrace the weirdness that we might get called sometimes, and it's just so good that you're doing that too. Keep doing it with your friends. You never know what influence you're going to have. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us today. We had a great time. Oh, and there's one last question for all of us data geeks out there. Have you met the Victorian Biodiversity Atlas, which is the state government database? So if you find things, you can pop it on there. And if you're interested, maybe we can hook you up, because if you find new things out there, it leaves that legacy in the long term, and it gets used for a lot of different things around policy and decision making. And so if we know there's special things there, it's really a lot easier to argue to keep that piece of land from being developed. So maybe we can hook you up if you're interested.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thank you, and enjoy the orchid season, because it's, could be the La Nina, and the orchids might hang on a bit more because we get a bit more rain. Let's all hope so. So thank you so much, Matilda. It's been great having you with us.
You.
It's wonderful. And what a good public speaker already. That's just so inspiring. So that's it for us today. Thanks for joining us. It's been wonderful. We've heard from 3 locals. We were planning to run this session out of Lake Fines this year, and it's just fitting that we've got 3 locals that have been there to kind of kick off the first of our 5 events. First, hearing from Julie, Andrew, on the importance of long-term efforts and just sharing nature with children over 20 plus years and 2,000 kids. It's just so inspiring. And the box ironbarks are special, and they're like the little forgotten cousin of the grampians. I really feel for you there, Julie, too. Let's get out there and see what we can't do to get some more love happening. And Ange, it was wonderful to hear from you as well, from the Jaluka Native Grasslands Project. And I think I mentioned it before, it's such a good model. It's so easy to maybe pick up that model and put it to somewhere else if we can get the right people to start it off. Because I think there's so many people wanting to do something out there for the environment, and they might just not know what to do next. So that project is just really inspiring. So thank you. And lastly, Matilda, look, we know you're going to have a bright future already, sharing and working with others, interacting with people that you don't know yet, but you want to learn from, and then they're learning from you. It's just wonderful. And it kind of is fitting, little things can make a big difference. And everyone today has kind of showed how, in their little way, sharing what they have with their love of the environment with others has really impacted others. So that's it for today, but we do not want to miss the opportunity to invite you to next week's seminar, where we're going to hear from Dr. David Yeats from CSIRO on the interaction between fire and insects, and he's done a fair bit of work looking into what the impacts of the 1920 bushfire season has meant for insect and insect recovery. So I'll be very excited, followed by another local, Dennis Crawford, who some might hear him on the radio. I know I enjoy that while I go pick up the kids from school, talking about insects as well from his point of view. If you haven't registered, there's the way to do it through the Eventbrite. Thank you so much. And this is that awkward ending where we don't really get to give each other a hug, but that's the sentiment I'm trying to put out there. So we look forward to having you on board next week. So thank you and see you later.
Pauline, just a quick one, the survey for today's seminar, if people could, I think Mel's going to pop the link in the chat there, if people could click on that and just complete some of that feedback for today, that would be really appreciated. Otherwise we can send it out in an email as well.
Thanks, Gold. It's like Batman and Robin, isn't it? You just need a backup. You're my Robin to my Batman today. Thank you. So you hang online, the chat will open, stay open with the survey link. That'll be great. And enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy spring.